I was in the smaller car, trailing behind with my brother, the driver of that car, and one other. My father was in his big car with some guests and my mother. He was driving himself. All I remember was seeing the nice sunshine outside, the country roads, the paddy fields, the banyan trees, and that's it. My memory just stopped. Next thing I knew, I woke up in the intensive care unit of Breach Candy Hospital. Had no consciousness, very fleeting consciousness. And it took me days, perhaps weeks, to figure out where I was. I would gain consciousness for a few seconds, see that I was in an unfamiliar bed, in an unfamiliar room, before I passed out again. And this kept on happening. I would see these white shadows flitting back and forth. And slowly I was able to put together that I was in the intensive care of the Breach Candy Hospital. I then started wondering what had happened to me. Absolutely no memory of what had happened to me. Imagine tomorrow morning you just wake up in the intensive care of a hospital, not knowing what happened. Slowly, I don't know whether it was days or hours or weeks, I had no concept of time at all. But my parents told me that on the road in Gujarat, driving to Udwara, my car had suffered a nearly fatal car accident. A truck was coming down the road towards us. My father swerved and took his car off the road, and the truck went straight into us, headlight into headlight. And they managed to get myself, my brother, the two other people into my father's car and drove them off to a local hospital. This was somewhere in Navsari or Valsara or somewhere. In the hospital, they couldn't find anyone to find my blood, and the doctor said that if you don't give him blood, he'll die. This is all told to me. I have no idea of it. It's like a story that I'm retelling to you. And they managed to get the blood and get me into an ambulance of the hospital. And then he set off the ambulance behind my father's car towards Breach Candy Hospital, which was about 4 or 5 hours away. Apparently on the road, the first rains of the monsoon fell. A cow ran in front of the ambulance. The ambulance hit the cow and swerved and turned upside down on the side of the road. My parents were quite hysterical. The doctor was desperately trying to put the blood back into me. Managed to get the ambulance pulled back onto the road by a truck that was passing by. The ambulance slowly trudged its way back to Bombay, stopping every 5-10 minutes because its radiator was damaged and they had to keep filling it with water. When my parents and the ambulance arrived at the Breach Candy Hospital, I'm told the doctors, the nursing staff, a lot of people were there waiting for me. They had expected me to arrive at something like 12 noon, and I turned up at 3 in the afternoon. They wanted to know whether I would arrive alive or dead. So I was rushed into the intensive care of the Beach Candy Hospital, and the doctors attending to me informed everybody not to put any surgical or medical intervention because we don't know whether he is dead or alive. We have to give him his own space, his own time to see which way he will go. Whether he'll come out alive or he'll lapse into death. In this way, I'm told 72 hours passed, 3 days and nights. Brief revival of consciousness. I saw myself wired up to all kinds of instruments and monitors bleeping away before I went into unconscious state again. After the 72 hours passed, they all felt that I would make it. And so I was rushed into the operating theater, where my first surgery was on my brain, my skull. Then I went into operating theater many times, total of about 18, 19 hours on the operating table. I have no concept of time. Time just passed. I have no memory of what happened, even today. Can you people hear me? Anu?
Yes, Jimmy.
Yes,
We can hear you.
yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Just,
So
yes, all of you, please mute yourself back again. Thank you.
I had no concept of time or anything else. I was a total record, keep breaking time in the intensive care unit of Beach Candy Hospital. I was there for about 3 months. Moving forward, I then had some very strange experiences from that day onwards. Life transforming experiences. To start with, the doctors had informed everyone, the nursing staff, the ward boys, my parents. Do not inform Jimmy that his brother got killed in the accident and his brother did not make it. So all along I would inquire about my brother and they would tell me, yes, he's in room down the corridor. He's doing well. I would ask what has gone wrong with him. How badly is he hurt? Nobody could be able to answer me clearly. I was very concerned, but nobody could give me a clear answer. And one fine day, I think 6 months later, I was still in hospital. My parents came in to my room, came up to me on my left side, long faces, held my hand, and in very solemn tones, they told me, actually, Jimmy, your brother never made it. He was killed in the first accident itself. I can't tell you what happened to me at that moment. I went to a complete state, complete shock, completely blanked out. I don't know how long for. And then slowly I found myself filling up with an immense rage, anger. And I thought that why has God done this to me? Why has God done this to my family? What have we done to deserve this? We were good, God-fearing Parsi family. What did we ever do to deserve this? And this rage grew, and with it grew an extreme hatred towards God. I wanted to curse him. I wanted to punish him. I wanted to tell him I hated him. So on the top of my voice, I started screaming all the curse words I knew, all the Gali words I knew, from the Punjabi to the Gujarati, cursing God in every way I could. I must have been quite loud because all the Catholic nurses in the ward apparently got quite disturbed by this. And they, not knowing what to do, somehow thought of contacting the head of the psychology department of St. Xavier's College, where I used to be in college. And then before I knew it, my hospital room door opened once again. And there was standing in the doorway was Father Filela, a Spanish priest, head of the Faculty of Psychology, all in his white cassock, looking at me. I suddenly realized what happened, and my rage doubled, and my hatred for God tripled. And I thought to myself, they think that by sending a Spanish priest to me, I'll tone down? So I, the top of my voice in front of him, at him, started cursing him, cursing God. All the words you can think of, from bastard to MC to EC. You know what he did? He stood there silently, looking at me. And he silently came across, walked up to me and held my hand. He said absolutely nothing. He just held my hand. Complete silence. And suddenly, I felt his unconditional love for me cut through my rage like a knife cutting through butter. I stopped cursing, started crying. My attitude towards God changed from that moment onwards. I've had many such experiences, which is why I wrote a book. It's called Journey Beyond, available on Amazon, Flipkart, and Kindle. I'll tell you a few of them. So I was discharged from hospital, I was home. Still a lot of plaster of Paris around me and over me and all the rest. Still quite immobile and crippled by my accident. Everybody wondering whether I would ever be able to walk again, let alone survive. I had a day nurse and a night nurse. At that time, a girl I had been going out with in London heard about my accident. She bought a ticket and came back to Bombay. Though she had a house in Bombay, she stayed with my parents. And I could never figure out what happened. But something happened between her and my father. A great battle ensued between her and my father. My father would come, sit with me and complain to me about what she did. Then she would come, sit with me and complain to me about what my father said and did.
Jimmy, your video is not there on. Could you please on it?
My what?
Your video is off.
My video's off.
Yes.
Okay.
Could you bring it alive? Thank you.
Okay. Better?
We can't see you.
Can you see me now?
No.
And so
Yeah, now I can.
battle would go on between them. And I'd have to sit or lie as a cripple in bed, struggling to survive, facing great physical pain, pain of loss of my brother, and having to face each of them dumping their emotional garbage on me. And I would think to myself with some anger, who the hell is the patient over here, you or me? And they didn't care. And then my father wrote me a letter. You might call it a red letter, where he said some very, very, very painful and hurtful things to me. I went into a state of depression. A few days later, towards night time, when the night nurse went into the bathroom, I noticed there was a bottle full of phenobarbiturate tablets on my bedside, along with a glass of water. So I took them, put them all in my mouth, and started to swallow them down with water. I decided to take my life. It was not worth living. I can't tell you what happened next. This night nurse named Sheila came out of the bathroom and saw me with this bottle of barbiturate tablets in my hand, empty bottle. She instantly knew what I had done. She went hysterical, ballistic, started crying hysterically, shouting at me, Jimmy, don't do it. Please, I beg of you, don't do it. She came running across from the bathroom, held my feet, kissing my feet, telling me, Jimmy, please don't do it. Sobbing away, crying hysterically. I was aghast. All thoughts of committing suicide disappeared. Suddenly I found me holding her in my arms with her head on my shoulder, trying to persuade her to stop crying, trying to persuade her that I won't do it. I was so disturbed and upset by what I had done to her. I was holding her, patting her back, trying to soothe her down. Don't ask me what happened to the tablets. I have no memory of it. But I didn't commit suicide. I was saved by the love of a woman who I didn't really even know. And I'll never forget that occasion also. Just like I'll never forget the occasion of Father Philola's love, which was also for me an initiation into the powers and energies of love. So I recovered from that. And I was finally able to go out a little bit on crutches. People didn't think I would live, but I lived. People didn't think I would ever get out of bed into a wheelchair, but I did. People didn't think I would ever get off a wheelchair onto crutches, and I did. And soon I was with a group of friends. We'd all gone to this discotheque, the Cellar or something. I was in crutches. All the girls wanted to dance with this guy on crutches. For me, that was quite a thrill, although I was still very shy. And I started dancing with one girl. From the other end of the dance floor, I suddenly heard this lady who was dancing with her guy looking at me and turned towards me and started running towards me, shouting out my name, Jimmy, Jimmy, Jimmy. As she came closer, I saw tears in her eyes. She grabbed me, she started kissing me. I thought the whole world had gone crazy. I later found out from her that she was one of the nurses at Breach Candy Hospital. And she couldn't believe her eyes when she saw me dancing there. She never thought I would make it. And now to suddenly see me dancing in a discotheque was too much for her. So once again, I got an experience of unconditional love. I can't tell you what it feels like. Sorry, give me a few minutes.
Take your time.
So I got out of hospital. I was a completely different person. My personality had changed completely, spun 360 degrees to what it was before. Before my accident, I was extremely shy, very introverted. After my accident, even when visitors came to see me in hospital, I had become an extrovert, cracking jokes all the time, making people laugh. Suddenly, I seem to have got a sense of humor. I don't know where from. And somehow I began to see the ridiculous in the most sublime, in everything. So much so that on Tuesdays after visiting hours, the doctors would pour into my room to crack jokes and to laugh. It became my mission to make people laugh. I think I still have a little bit of the shy me somewhere in me, but I sure as hell can't find it anymore. So I came out of all this. My career was in shambles. Couldn't go back to the UK to do my articles of clerkship. Went to America, joined a big CPA firm, tried my hand over there. Didn't like it very much. Met my wife to be at a party. I was in America, she was in Bombay when I proposed to her. Came back to get married. It was almost like a shotgun marriage. A marriage that has gone through a lot of troubled waters, but has lasted all the same. And I can very clearly say today that I have grown and learned a lot from my relationships with her and from others. That my greatest teacher are all my relationships. Today, I don't really have a job, I don't have a great income, but I have everything. You can talk about abundance and conceptualize about it, but I have it. I have everything. I have incredible amounts of love coming to me. I don't know from where, from why, or for what. And I just love uninhibitedly. I don't make a lot of money, but I've got everything I want. Got a house. All my needs are taken care of. And I can immerse myself fully in the work which I have a passion for, which is psychotherapy and helping people with their psychological, mental, and emotional problems. And in the process, my path of spirituality began. I who was the most unspiritual guy, the greatest skeptic, could not believe in God only because, would only believe in God because my parents told me so. I had become a good friend of this pediatric doctor, a young lady called Firoza. And she would tell me about this great sage, or whatever you want to call him, Meher Baba. I'd say, well, what does he teach? She couldn't answer. Whoever mentioned Meher Baba to me, I'd ask, well, what does he teach? Nobody could tell me what he teaches. So I was puzzled and curious. Then Nan Umriga wrote her first book, and it was given for me to read. I was fascinated. Could this be possible? And I got a desire to go to Mehrabad. I don't know what's going wrong with the screen, but please.
Don't worry.
I got a desire to go to Mehrabad, and I'll get into that story in a little while. But Firoza first introduced me to a group of people that met every Saturday in a school off Slater Road near Tardeo. And this was a seance circle. And I'd mentioned I wanted to understand and experience a seance circle because suddenly the idea popped into my head. I would like to understand the mind from the occult spiritual side, not just from the Western psychological side. So she took me for my first meeting. There was a circle of people sitting around. The room was darkened. And in that circle, there was another circle referred to as the inner circle. And in the inner circle, there was one old Parsi lady with thick white matted hair and printed frock, hunchback. And the seance meeting started with everybody chanting, praying Zoroastrian prayers and chanting Om. And suddenly the Parsi lady would shoot up as though possessed by a spirit guide. The spirit guide, I later learned, was a high-level Austrian or Scottish nun by the name of Mother Catherine. And when she came out in the form of Arnaz Kapadia, and Arnaz's thick English accent changed completely into the strange Scottish European accent. And she would come to all the newcomers in the circle and give them a message. So she came up to me. I was told, don't speak unless spoken to. She held my hand, stood in front of me, and she said to me, literally in these words, "Child, you are a great skeptic, are you not? You do not believe in this," she cackled. "Don't worry, my child. You'll become a great believer." And then she suddenly was holding my hand like that, and she suddenly went back like that. So I got a shock. She held my hand again. She said, "Child, you do not know it, but you are a generator of energy. You are a generator of energy." So I'm listening to this. And then she tells me that one day you will be sending out or emanating or radiating energy to thousands of people. At that point, my ego got a real lift. I imagined myself standing on a platform in Dharavi with my hands up in the air, dressed like and looking like Jesus Christ, thinking to myself, hey man, I've arrived. I'm giving energy to thousands of people. Just then she says to me, but child, do not get too puffed up. You're getting too puffed up. She knew exactly what I was going, what my thoughts were, and took the wind out of my sail, and I came back down to earth. But from that moment onwards, I began to feel a very strange sensation going through my entire body. A kind of vibration, you might call it. Vibration like the vibrations of a piano string. Every sinew in my arms, my legs, vibrated like a piano string. Every time I was in that meeting. Then later, as I would come into that room, I would begin to feel those vibrations. And slowly those vibrations started to occupy me more and more, even outside. And those vibrations started to tone down more like a distant roll of drums rather than a raw vibration. But in that room that day, the vibrations would go higher and higher, higher and higher, and I would get scared, sort of like the 9 o'clock siren going higher and higher. And I thought it may never end. The minute I got scared, it started coming down again. These vibrations are still there with me. I've always wondered, what am I supposed to do with this? All the great wise Gurujis have given their own wisdom and gyan, but I have not been able to believe any of them. Finally, my path went to Mehrabad, where I had the most mind-blowing experience of them all. In a bus of people that Nana Murga was taking up, they got off at Mehrabad. The time to go for the evening aarti was there. I walked up the hill. It was a rough-shodden path to the Samadhi. Everybody was asking each other, what are you going to ask Mer Baba for? What are you going to ask for? So I was wondering, what should I ask for? But nothing was coming to my mind. And finally, when I had to put my head at Mer Baba's gravestone, like a dumb idiot, the only thing I could think of saying was, Baba, please, just make me your instrument on earth to serve you, whatever way you wish. That's all. I was in a semi-trance at that time, and walking down the hill after that, I wanted to be on my own. It was getting dark, the sun was setting. A young girl who was in that group, who had just lost her father a year earlier, took pity and walked up alongside me. We walked in silence for a while. I turned my head left to look at her, and she turned right to look at me. And the minute our eyes met, I went to a complete state of unconsciousness. Like I can't tell you, was more unconscious than even fainting. I was not there. I was not in my body. I never existed. And I don't know how long I was in that state, but I was still walking down the path without tripping when I came back into my body, completely flabbergasted. I turned to the little girl and I asked her whether she noticed anything. And with only the way in which a beautiful, innocent little girl, 15-year-old girl can say, she turned to me and said, yes, my father was walking alongside me just now. I couldn't say anything more. Really can't say anything more even right now. So thank you all for giving me this opportunity to speak. There are a lot more stories. If you want to know about them, please read the book. Only 200 rupees, Amazon or Kindle.
Please put the name and say the name again so people can pick up the book.
Journey Beyond,
Journey Beyond, guys. Written by Dr. Jimmy.Mody.
written by just Jimmy.Mody, and the title is just Journey Beyond.
Wonderful.
On Amazon, Kindle, Flipkart.
Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I just feel that this session has gone on a different level today. It's taken its own life again. It's creating its own magic today. And I am so grateful for your journey. So grateful that you are alive. So grateful that you are so beautifully, you've weaved the magic of your life in your journey. I just want to say this. I often see people wanting to die, and yet I meet a person who wants to live. And that's what really makes me smile, that there are people who have everything and they want to die. And then I have a gentleman who says, I have everything and I want to live. And that by itself is a big story with which we can look into ourselves and see how we are feeling. Why not we unmute ourselves once again and give him a big round of applause, guys? To celebrate his life, celebrating being alive. Well done. Well done, guys. Please put your comments and feedbacks. And if anybody wants to say anything right now, unmute yourself and say whatever you want to say to him. Come on, guys.
Jimmy, today when you spoke about the two incidents, one of the psychologist who and just held your hand for the unconditional love.
Tejinder, just unmute yourself. Just unmute yourself.
Hello?
Yeah,
Yes, I
continue.
can hear you.
Jimmy, what I was saying is when you shared about the two incidents where one, the psychologist, he just held his hand
Can I
where
make a
you felt.
request? Can you all please unmute? Can you all please mute yourself? Thank you. Yes, continue, please. I'm so sorry about this. I apologize.
So the psychologist, a doctor, when he came to you, he held his hand and you felt unconditional love.
He was a priest.
He was a priest,
He was
right?
a priest.
So yeah, so I you have, we all, at least we all say unconditional love, but that simple act is a way for unconditional love, is something. Through your message you have shown the power of what it can do, and thank you for sharing that.
Very good. Thank you, Tejinder. Anybody else wants to unmute themselves and share before we go to the next speaker? Okay, I would ask you guys to write the feedback in the chat. I'm going to send the chat to all three speakers today. Today is a session which is full of heart, full of tears, full of love, full of life. There's no intellect here. Life is not intellectual. Life is just life. And that's what is so amazing about life. You either live it or you die, or you live it like a dead person. I salute people who live life like that they're alive, not dead. Thank you so much. We go to the next speaker.